is Sarah Wilson. I'm the founder and chief executive of Minerva Analytics. We're a UK-based corporate governance research, proxy voting agency and stewardship support service. Stewardship is a very, very old word. But really, since we've been involved in what used to just be called corporate governance and proxy voting, we've seen stewardship really blossom and grow from something which was a very abstract concept tucked away in a regulatory document. And people's lived experience now of stewardship is really incredibly all-embracing throughout their organisation. So it's great to see how the silos are breaking down between the investment team, the voting team, the ESG team, and it's something that's becoming really enmeshed in people's organisations in a way I don't think it was necessarily envisaged when, for example, the K Review came out or the Walker Review came out. So I think that's a real testimony to the effort that everybody's been putting into the idea of getting something which, as I say, more holistic, more joined up. Well, you know, you're right. Complexity does create its own challenges in terms of people have to relearn how to do things. But I think it's that process of going through the relearning which is actually encouraging everybody to come together. There is no one size fits all about stewardship, and I think that's actually one of the critical takeaways. There was a lot more box ticking, check the box, one size fits all, this is how it is. And I think people have come to appreciate that stewardship, it's much more nuanced than people imagine, but we're seeing more training, more fund managers recognising and respecting that their ESG and governance teams actually have something to contribute to the investment process. We're seeing a whole sort of explosion in fund products which are embedding governance into them, which we wouldn't have seen 25 years ago. Drivers for stewardship, they're multifaceted drivers. We have to start with the fact that it was a regulatory push. The stewardship drive was a response to the global financial crisis and the missing link of informed ownership. Although the Cadbury report had talked about engagement and ownership, it was not really being put through in the way that it is now. So first of all, it started with regulation. Not just financial services regulation, but pensions regulation, for example. Then we have people talking about it in terms of consumer supply, demand, etc. Now we've got pension funds who actually have their duties embedded in law. And that's really creating lots of opportunities, lots of dynamics for people to say, well, how are we going to do this? What's the best way to do this? You have asset owners, particularly pension trustees, who are creating and stimulating a lot of demand for more products. And I think that's actually the really exciting thing, because trustees, who once didn't really understand what was being done in their name, now know a lot more. They don't necessarily know everything. And so that's really pushing for managers to offer new solutions, which I think is really exciting for everybody. Sure. Well, obviously it was a global financial crisis and climate change is a global problem. So we do see a lot more global cooperation. So if you look at initiatives such as, for example, TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, IOSCO is now getting involved in corporate governance. 20 years ago, it wouldn't know what corporate governance was. But I think the challenge that we've got is somehow respecting local market sensibilities, but embracing learnings from other markets as well. And so, I'm really keen to encourage many more sort of research studies which don't look just at one market in a silo, but actually say, well, are these ideas generalizable? Can we take them to other markets? What is it that we've learned from Japan versus the US versus the UK versus Germany? So I think that's where ECGI has got a very important role to play. I don't think we're all the way there yet, and the pandemic has helped, but at the same time it hasn't helped. So I think events like we've got here today are a great way for people to come together in a very supportive environment, talk about these very important issues. Very good question. You're right about the mega trend. I mean, it really is truly a paradigm shift in how we think about investment and how it should be done. And I do see people trying to push back against it, trying to create a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think this is where, sort of, as research practitioners, we've actually got to say we need to embrace the volatility and the uncertainty. And yep, a lot of it is very, very ambiguous, but we're all capable of learning. And I think it's just try very hard not to control too much. We've got to let evolution play its part and see what actually comes out of it. And again, The more that we talk about it, the more that we learn about it, we find out what's working. I think the biggest challenge at the moment is not that the ESG community is at loggerheads with one another, but there are a lot of people who've just not bought into the idea that ESG is actually a thing. So I think the acronym that I think is now missing from ESG is P, which is the politics, and possibly also the psychology as well. Because we're talking about trying to change people's hearts and minds before we see the laws being changed. And so we don't want to actually get into sort of just a war of words about ESG, because let's face it, we can crash the financial system and central governments will print money and bail it out. We can't crash the planet. So there's a lot at stake, so we just got to keep working at it.